I'm Akshita Nandagopal, and this week we're talking about the massive controversy surrounding the Adani Group and the US court's indictment. Let's begin from the very start of the controversy. Last week, a US court indicted representatives of the Adani Group, including Gautam Adani and his nephew Sagar Adani. The move sparked a political storm back home, with Parliament also being rocked by the controversy. The opposition has been up in arms over the issue. But let's move away from the politics and explain to you what this indictment says and what really this could mean for the Adanis. On November 20th, a federal court in Brooklyn unsealed a 5-count indictment, some of which named Gautam Adani, his nephew Sagar Adani, and the Adani Green Energy former CEO Vneet Jaain. The indictment also had other names, Ranjit Gupta and Rupesh Agarwal, who were previously executives of a company called Azure Power, as well as Cyril Cabanis, Saurabh Agarwal and Deepak Agarwal, who are former employees of CDPF, a Canadian institutional investor. Now, the case pertains to a basic allegation of security fraud and bribery charges in one of the world's largest solar energy projects, which is right here in India. So let me read out for you the most important points from the indictment, which was actually read out by the US Attorney for New York, Brian Peace. I'm quoting here. As alleged, the defendants orchestrated an elaborate scheme to bribe Indian government officials to secure contracts worth billions of dollars. And Gautam S. Adani, Sagar R. Adani, and Vneet S. Jain lied about the bribery scheme as they sought to raise capital from US and international investors. My office is committed to rooting out corruption in the international market space and protecting investors from those who seek to enrich themselves at the expense of the integrity of our financial markets. So if you're wondering why is this playing out in a US court, why is the US court getting involved in a case pertaining to bribery of Indian officials and a solar energy project in India? The allegation is that when power deals weren't going as they wanted, the defendants, or the accused in the case, decided to bribe Indian officials, and for the same, they needed funds or capital. So they got these funds from US investors by allegedly misleading them that they were actually investing in the project. According to the US attorney fighting this case, the Adani Group lied about the bribery scheme to raise capital. So let's tell you what exactly an indictment means. An indictment is essentially a formal establishment of an allegation. So it in no way declares anyone as guilty of a crime. It merely establishes that a person is accused of a crime. So in this case of an indictment, a formal notice has been issued to the accused, and that includes Gautam Adani. They're accused of committing a crime, that's what the notice says, and of course they can go ahead and fight it legally. Now let's explain to you the charges. This is a 5-count indictment, count meaning charges. So let me list each one for you and who's accused in each count or each charge. Count 1 relates to the conspiracy to violate the FCPA, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, if you will, a law similar to the anti-corruption law in India. The defendants or the accused include Ranjit Gupta, Cyril Cabanis, Saurabh Agarwal, Deepak Malhotra and Rupesh Agarwal. Names I've mentioned before, but highlight here that the Adanis aren't named in this charge. Count 2 relates to the securities fraud conspiracy. Here, the accused are Gautam Adani, Sagar Adani, along with former Adani Green CEO Vneet Jaain. The third count, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. This is the third charge. The accused here, again, in this third charge, the accused are Gautam Adani, Sagar Adani and Vneet Jaain. So the second and third count, they are named. They're also named in count 4, which is securities fraud. Different from count 2 because that was conspiracy. This is securities fraud, has the same list of the 3 accused. Now the count 5, the 5th charge here, is conspiracy to obstruct justice. And in this charge, the Adanis aren't named as accused. Essentially, against the Adanis, the allegation is of securities and wire fraud. So in such a circumstance, what could happen next? After an indictment is issued, the next step is typically an arraignment, where the accused will be formally charged and asked to enter a plea. this could be, and the reason we say could is because there are different permutations and combinations to look into legally, but there could be a pre-trial motions and discovery during which both the prosecution and the defense exchange evidence. If the case proceeds to trial, a jury will hear the evidence and decide whether the defendants are guilty or not guilty. Additionally, the US government may pursue an extradition request because, of course, Adani is based not in America but in India. So in such a circumstance, what can Adani do next? Adani and the other accused can obviously pursue several legal strategies to defend themselves. He can choose to first fight the charges, which means they may seek to challenge the evidence or argue that the allegations of bribery or the allegations of securities fraud in the case of Adani's are not supported by the facts. Second, go ahead and negotiate a settlement. The accused could potentially reach a plea deal with US authorities. A plea deal might involve pleading guilty to certain charges in exchange for reduced sentences or other concessions. But these are essentially the options of what they have ahead of them. Now, what happens if there's a conviction? It's far too early to say which way this indictment will go. But worst case scenario is a conviction. And what happens if there's a conviction? Remember, we told you the charges are under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the FCPA. And under this act, there can be both civil and criminal penalties if convicted. So what exactly are the civil penalties? This can be fines of up to $10,000 plus an additional fine that can't be more than the greater of the gross amount of a gain or a specified dollar limitation. Essentially, it's based case to case on what kind of alleged kickbacks they were. Criminal penalties can be anti-bribery violations, in which case corporations can face a maximum fine of $2 million. Individuals can face a maximum fine of $100,000 and up to even 5 years in prison. In the case of accounting provision violations, corporations can face a maximum fine of $25 million. Individuals can face a maximum fine of $5 million and up to 20 years in prison.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.